China's closures. Now we start with China and Taiwan and Japan. China's Taiwan Affairs Office has commented on Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi's comments on Taiwan. The Chinese office has warned Japan to handle Taiwan-related issues with caution. The office has added that China is strongly dissatisfied with Japan's comments and firmly opposes them. This comes as Takaichi had earlier said that a Chinese maritime blockade of Taiwan could constitute a survival-threatening situation for Japan. Responding to Takaichi's statements, China's Consul General in Osaka, Xue Jian, had said in a now-deleted post on X that the dirty neck that sticks itself in must be cut off. Taiwan had called the Chinese diplomat's remarks toward Takaichi disrespectful and impolite, and that the comments demonstrated China's reckless and domineering mindset. Now for this discussion, we welcome Andrew K.P. Long. He's a China strategist, joins us live from Hong Kong. Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us again. Good to see you. Andrew, now looking at this, what more can you tell us about what's unfolding between China, Taiwan, and Japan, and how might Japan's statements and Taiwan's statements on their Taiwan security reshape their diplomatic relationship with China?
Well, I've stated on this channel many times that Taiwan as not a country, has never been a separate country. The sovereignty over Taiwan existed back as long as the Ming Dynasty even before the 1300 AD. Of course, after the President Nixon's rapprochement with Chairman Mao, Taiwan was delisted as representing the entire Chinese nation, and also in the United Nations, and also the People's Republic of China has been recognized as the only sovereign power over Taiwan. Of course, this one China policy has always been followed by the United States, except the United States also has Taiwan Relations Act right from the very start, which enabled the American administration to continue to supply arms to Taiwan to defend itself. Now, of course, there is a existential rivalry between the two powers, China and the United States, especially over the Asia-Pacific and the East China Sea, because of the territorial disputes over the so-called Senkaku or Diaoyu Islands, which are some barren rocks. Now, these rocks were originally, of course, had been part of China for a long time, but after the Second World War, it was handed back to the Japan for administration. It's never recognized that these the territorial over these rocks belong to Japan. But anyway, Japan nationalized these rocks, and of course, the current Japanese Prime Minister Takaichi has been known as a China hawk, and that plays into the hands of the anti-China strategy of the Trump administration. So Japan has been used as a useful ploy to continue to provoke and contain China. But as far as Taiwanese are concerned, most of the Taiwanese people do not want unification. Neither do they dare to declare independence, because they know that once they declare independence, that would trigger off a military response from Beijing right from the very start, because Beijing already enacted the Anti-Secession Act decades ago, and of course is modernizing its navy, its missiles, its air force, to prevent such a situation from happening. But Beijing's preference is always on peaceful unification. On the one hand, increasing the military deterrence against any separatist movement, but also encouraging the people-to-people exchanges between the two peoples on either side of the Taiwan Strait. So a lot of the tourists visiting each other, businesses are interacting, a lot of Taiwanese people seeking business opportunities on the mainland. So this situation carries on, and there'll be a momentum towards negotiations for a peaceful settlement, perhaps on a formula more generous than for Hong Kong and Macau. But that's the preference. But this rhetoric that somehow Beijing is going to invade Taiwan anytime soon is of course a twisted logic, because the Beijing sees any premature invasion of Taiwan could be a trap. Because both people belong to the same race, and the Taiwan waters are extremely treacherous. So Beijing always believes in the eventual peaceful unification, and the deadline is 2049, as said by President Xi many times, which is still a number of decades from now. So I think the time is the time for peaceful unification. So for Japan to hype up the risk, obviously, is unnecessary provocation to Beijing.
Right. With that, I would like to thank Andrew K.B. Long for covering all the perspectives on this topic. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on, China has welcomed Washington's decision to pause a key export control rule for a year. The U.S. regulation, which expands restrictions to any entity owned 50% or more by sanctioned parties, has now been suspended from November 10th. Beijing's Commerce Ministry called it an important step in implementing the understanding reached during recent China-U.S. trade talks in Kuala Lumpur. A spokesperson for the Commerce Ministry said both sides will continue discussions on what happens after the one-year suspension. China says it's ready to work with the United States to manage differences, strengthening dialogue, and create stable conditions for global supply chains and businesses on both sides. Now for this discussion, we welcome back Andrew K.B. Long. He's a China strategist, joins us live from Hong Kong. Thank you very much, Andrew, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, how might this a-year suspension of U.S. export control rule influence China's strategic approach to technology, supply chain, and resilience?
Of course, one of the key strategy for the United States to confront and contain China's rise is to strangle its access to high technology. So a number of Chinese companies, large companies, have been targeted and sanctioned. But these companies also have subsidiaries, and they are all over the world. And of course, recently, the Trump administration has doubled down on these restrictions, extending them to all the subsidiaries, regardless of the level of ownership. Now, as a result of this deal between President Xi and President Trump in Busan, Korea, both sides agreed to scale down the confrontation, and the United States administration has now agreed that with this 50% threshold, in other words, provided the subsidiaries are less than 50% control, that they would be exempt from these restrictions, at least for as long as this pause of the tariff war lasts for 1 year initially.
Right. And how should China balance diplomatic engagement with the U.S. against long-term goals of technological and self-sufficiency?
Well, as far as the China's technological advance is concerned, because when President Trump first gained the White House, in 2017, I think, President Xi already saw what was coming. He directed the whole Chinese nation to double down on self-reliance on technology. And then over the years, China's technological advance has been stunning. According to a front page issue of The Economist, I think almost a year ago now, China was regarded as a scientific or technological superpower because in surveying a large number of peer-reviewed PhD science, technology, engineering, mathematics, the leading research papers, China occupied a dominant position. Now this front page piece in The Economist was supported by recent research of the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, the ASPI, in Australia. And then the Australian think tank surveyed over 2 million PhD STEM review cited papers. And China is regarded as found to be leading in 37 out of the 44 cutting-edge technologies. Now, this is because China has now the world's largest reservoir of technological manpower, producing something like 77,000 STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, PhDs, compared with about 40,000 from the United States. And of course, you can't compare life with life, but nevertheless, they are all peer-reviewed STEM PhD review papers in the international domain. So I think that the China's technological advance is also supported by the success of the robotic mission to the backside of the moon, bringing back soil samples, and no other countries are able to do that yet. Also, supported by China successfully operating its own space station starting from scratch, because China was excluded from the International Space Station led by the United States, which incidentally right from the beginning included Russia, but not China. And now China succeeded on its own, building its own space station from scratch, and operating it successfully. So I think that China's now, with the rare earth stranglehold, China's now found its feet to be able to withstand any kind of coercion from the United States.
Right. Thank you very much, Andrew, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back for our next discussion as well. Now, moving on to Vietnam. Vietnam has said that it is close to sign